Hey everybody, Greg Pruitt here with the Idaho Dispatch, and I am joined today by David Worley, who is a candidate for mayor in Pocatello. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different. Everybody's probably going, wait a minute here. The election already happened. I thought we had a mayor. Well, not quite. There is a runoff here in Pocatello because nobody got to 50%, right?
Yes.
Plus one. And so you were the second place candidate behind the current mayor, Brian Bladd. And so the two of you now are going head to head on the runoff election, which is taking place on November 30th, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Tuesday, November 30th.
Okay. So, was this your first campaign you've ever done for elected office?
Yes, this is actually the first time I run for office.
Okay. So what made you want to run for mayor? I mean, that's, and this is always one of my favorite questions to ask candidates, because what goes on in your head that you're like, I'm going to run for this or I'm going to run for that. And you decided, hey, I'm going to run and try and challenge the current mayor. So what kind of drove you to that point?
So first of all, born and raised here in Pocatello. So I'm a proud, Pocatello native, graduate from Pocatello. My family is all from here, multiple generations back, and most of my extended family lives here as well. My wife is also from the area. So we have a lot of strong local ties to the city. But we spent, a lot of time, outside the state, about 12 years, right after I came back from being a missionary for my church. And a lot of that was spent on various military assignments in Virginia. So we lived out there for a while, have 5 kids, we're raising them, and then we saw that the Commonwealth of Virginia last year really started to, it was really apparent that it was getting hard to live there. So it degraded over the time we were there politically, and we see kind of a rebound now with Glenn Youngkin's election. But last year, we had really strict COVID policies. We had the governor try to take away most of the people's guns in Virginia, and we also had riots throughout the state during the summer, which my battalion participated in as doing riot control and support of police. So all these things happened that kind of made us think, maybe Virginia is not the place where we want to finish raising our children. So moved back out west, came back to our hometown, and then sadly saw that a lot of the same restrictions that were put in place during the pandemic, these COVID restrictions are being put in place in Idaho and in Pocatello. And that's what kind of made the decision that, if we're going to live somewhere for the rest of our lives, want to retire here, raise our children here, then we should fight for freedom in our hometown. And made the decision to run for mayor.
Okay. And the wife was like fantastic, or was she a little nervous about that?
I think she was a little nervous about it. My wife is not a political novice. She was really involved in college Republicans and things, did some professional campaign training and stuff like that. And also was actually worked for a congressman for a couple of years.
Okay.
On Capitol Hill, so as a staffer. So, she kind of knew that when you get into politics, there's a lot of stuff that has to go into it. It's very time consuming. You put your name out there, open yourself up to all sorts of criticism. And it's not necessarily a fun process, but it's a challenge, and it's what's necessary if you want to see change.
Okay. And so, and for those watching, I guess back a little bit on your personal life.
Yeah.
You are a current member of the armed forces, correct?
Yes, so currently I'm a drilling guardsman. So started out my military career here in Pocatello at 1st of the 148 Field Artillery. It's a local National Guard artillery battalion. I did my first deployment to Iraq with the Idaho Guard during the big deployment in 2004, where I took the whole brigade. And since then, so that's 2002, I've been either in a drilling status with the Guard or deployed or on an active duty assignment with the Guard. And that's taken me, around the world in different parts of the country and different parts of Virginia.
Okay.
Before I came back here.
Okay. Yeah. And so, and for those watching, the military does not obviously do endorsements or anything like that, and that is all completely separate from what.
Yes. So the use of my military rank or military status does not constitute in any way an endorsement from the Department of the Army and Department of Defense.
Okay.
Yep.
And what's your current rank?
Major.
Major. Okay.
Yep. So I'm an infantry officer.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's jump in now to kind of some policy positions. What are some of the things that you think you would like to bring to Pocatello as the mayor? So maybe some things different than what is currently happening that you think would make Pocatello a better place.
So one of the big issues right now, matter of fact, people should be getting their property tax bills, today or tomorrow, or certainly on Monday, is property taxes in Pocatello are extremely high, and the city's tax levy rate actually, if you look at Pocatello compared to cities of the same size, or similar size, so Idaho Falls, Caldwell, Coeur d'Alene, Twin Falls, you look at any of our peers in the state, we have the highest city tax levy rate compared to those other cities. Matter of fact, if you compare Pocatello to the top 10 most populated cities in Idaho, so that includes, the big players, big places like Boise and Nampa, Pocatello still has, among the top 10 most populated cities, the highest city levy rate. And not only that, when you compare us to our peers, we have the lowest median household income. So I think that's a clear indicator that we are taxing beyond what our tax base can support, and we're taking more from people who have less to give. And I think that has also been a major hindrance to Pocatello's economic development. If you're a business, you're looking to start a business, and you can choose between going to, Chubbuck, Idaho Falls, or some other part of the state, a lot of businesses are choosing to go other places because of the taxes that Pocatello has on its people and on its businesses. So I think that is a major issue that needs to be resolved. We need to get our spending under control so we can reduce taxes and provide relief for the people of Pocatello.
Okay. And that was going to be, I guess, my follow-up question is, how, if the taxes are too high, how do you intend to bring those down?
So first off, I'd like to say that if you look at us compared to other cities, not only do we have the higher levy rate, in real dollars, often we spend more, even for cities that are pretty much the exact same size, such as Coeur d'Alene. And then we also have a much larger employee workforce for the city. So the size of our government is just much larger, which makes it more expensive. So, I can't go through and say like, hey, here are these, 30 line items in the budget that we need to take out right now. What I can say is that I know it's possible to reduce our spending because other cities in Idaho provide the exact same services or comparable services, but they do it with fewer employees and they do it with less money. So some things that I know that we can do. If you look at the organizational structure of the city of Pocatello, it's very top heavy. There's administrative overhead that we can reduce, some very expensive positions that I think we need to take a hard look at and see, do we need these positions? We don't see that, so same number of positions, managerial positions in other cities. Also, we need to look at privatization. What are some things the city does that can be better done in the private sector? That has been a way that a lot of cities throughout the state and around the country have been able to bring down costs, is looking at city assets, positions, and functions that can be performed in the private sector instead of being done by government employees. And that's not only saves the city money, but it allows us to take those tax dollars and put them back into the business community instead of just keeping them all in the city. I think that helps drive our local economy as well. So naturally, city employees are hearing this and going, oh my gosh, this guy's going to come in, I'm going to lose my job. And that's something my opponent has been pushing, a vote for Worley is a vote against your own job. First off, you obviously can't privatize everything. Secondly, I think that it's possible to do most of these reductions through attrition, meaning when an employee retires or goes and finds other employment, wants to switch careers or for whatever reason, we don't necessarily have to replace all those people, and that can be part of a gradual downsizing process. The city government to a size that allows us to provide those core services, but also lessens the tax ask on the citizens. Now, some people will still be concerned and say, okay, well, is that really going to be possible? Is my job going to be one of those ones going to go away? Our CFO, the last outgoing CFO for the city of Pocatello, was very clear in August and during his statement to the city council that our city spending is unsustainable. The future of Pocatello, without any reductions in spending, is either higher taxes or eventually we're going to have dramatic cuts or a combination of the two. So the best way to keep city jobs, in my opinion, to protect those, if you're worried about your job, is to actually put the city on a fiscally sustainable path so we don't have to do mass layoffs in the future.
in addition to, I guess, reducing spending
Yeah.
and trying to bring down taxes, what are some other issues that you would like to
So
do?
two things, economic development and then looking at how we can better protect the rights of our people. So economic development is tied to taxation. We talked about if you have a higher tax rate than other cities where businesses could go, it's going to be, you have to be competitive. But it's not just taxation. It's looking at the regulatory framework you put on businesses. I've talked to lots of business owners who own, for example, they own a business that has, a shop in Pocatello, and they also have a similar thing in Chubbuck, or sometimes even further, Blackfoot, Idaho Falls. And I've been told by many business owners that Pocatello is one of the most difficult places in southeast Idaho and even throughout the state to do business. And just we need to get that under control. Our city government needs to be more responsive to business owners. We need to make sure that our regulation is fair, consistent, and predictable. Not something that changes constantly or the application is uneven. So it's the taxation, the regulatory requirements, create that better business climate. And then we need to look for businesses to bring to Pocatello that match the natural strengths of our city. So we are still a railroad hub. We sit on a major interstate highway, and we have Idaho State University that has a technical college that churns out all sorts of people, machinists and all sorts of different technical training programs that turn out graduates that have to leave Pocatello pretty much in every case. Most of those people have to go and find work somewhere else because there's no jobs for those career fields. So I say, let's go find businesses that are going to be able to hire our people, hire those ISU graduates, and can provide a middle-class lifestyle for the people of our city. And I think that manufacturing is that answer. That we have opportunities here, we have unused industrial space, the transportation assets, the technical training programs. I see no reason why the future of Made in America should not include Made in Pocatello.
Okay.
And then, the last issue I want to bring up, how can we better protect the rights of our people? I think that there's a lot of people right now who are rightfully concerned about the dramatic expansion in government power that happened during the pandemic. So I'll take a couple points, right? So first off, during the pandemic, we came up with this concept of the non-essential business. Some businesses are essential, some are non-essential, we can close down the non-essential ones. I think that's a completely erroneous concept. So if you think about it, even if you or I can go without a service, like haircutting, okay, we say we're going to go without a haircut for a while. We're both in the military, you're a veteran yourself. You can cut your own hair. It's not pretty, but it can be done, right?
Yeah.
But can the barber go without cutting hair? Absolutely not, because that's how he puts food on his table. So I completely oppose in the future doing anything like we did before the business shutdowns. We should leave those decisions to private business owners and their customers to accept whatever level of risk they are comfortable with during a pandemic or other types of crises. It doesn't help when the government tries to use a one-size-fits-all solution. And that's the same thing with masks. It's the same thing with the vaccine mandates. These are private medical decisions that the government should not be involved in. And yes, those mandates and those regulations and recommendations came from DC and Boise. So someone will ask, what does it have to do with the city government? Well, at the end of the day, it's a local government that is the primary enforcement arm for the state and the federal government. And my commitment's been clear. I will never use the city government to enforce any unconstitutional mandate or law, whether it comes out of Washington, D.C. or it comes out of Boise. I believe that the purpose of government, as found in the Declaration of Independence, is to protect your God-given rights. And that's the full gambit of the Bill of Rights and more. So how does shutting down a business impact your rights? That is a direct assault on your right to property. You should have a right to earn a living. You have a right to work. And whenever the government gets involved in those things, same with the vaccine mandate, you can't do that. You can't have a job unless you do what the government wants you to do. That's a very dangerous precedent to set. And I think local governments need to play a role in protecting their people from higher levels of government when they do things that are blatantly unconstitutional.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, go down the road of rights and liberty.
Yeah.
You were, I guess, criticized in an Idaho State Journal piece about a speech that you had given while you were in Virginia, to I maybe I'm wrong. It said militia. I don't know if they were a militia or just a group of guys or whatever they were, but there was some criticism that you had, given this speech to those guys.
Sure.
What has been your response to that?
And
I guess if you can, sorry, what's the backdrop?
So I guess I'll kind of give the context of the speech first. So, like I mentioned, Virginia went through a lot of political upheaval last year. And one of the big things that happened was Governor Northam, one of the most radical Democrat governors in the history of the United States, tried to pass a gun control law that wanted to ban assault weapons. We've heard that type of language before. But the definition of an assault weapon he used and was being pushed in the legislature was so broad and so expansive that it would have banned 70 to 80% of modern firearms. And it didn't have a grandfather clause. This isn't the assault weapons ban in the 90s where you get to keep your guns. No, this is by July 1st of last year, if it would have been passed, turn in your weapons for destruction, turn in your guns for destruction, or if you're caught with them after that point, you're a Class 6 felon. It would have made hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Virginians felons overnight. So obviously this garnered a lot of stiff political resistance. And what people got to remember about Virginia is it's one of these weird states where it's a true political fault line in the country. It has counties right up around D.C. and Northern Virginia that are as deep blue as you would find in New York or California. And then it has counties in the south that are as deep red as you would find anywhere in Idaho, Utah, or Wyoming. So just a true political fault line in the country. And a lot of people got together and said, look, we called our senators, we called our delegates, we did all the normal political mobilization stuff, and they still were pushing it. So two things I think pushed this over the edge that actually made the bill fail. One was local government said, we are not going to enforce this law, even if it's passed in Richmond. Matter of fact, 85 out of 96 counties in Virginia passed resolutions saying they would not enforce the law. And then you had groups of private citizens who got together and held for the first time in, almost 100 years now, actually more than 100 years, held county militia musters. And these are very different than, people have this kind of mental image of militias, like from kind of the 90s, like guys running around in the woods with guns, plotting to overthrow the government. These are very average people, just citizens who got together and held a muster and wanted to send a clear message to the governor that they would not willingly surrender their firearms. That's how committed they were. They weren't just going to give them up. And I think it worked. It sent a clear message to the governor. The county I lived in, Floyd County, is where I gave this speech. And I was asked to give this speech because I was the one who was one of the leaders in organizing the political opposition to that bill and helped put a lot of pressure on our county to pass a resolution and become a Second Amendment sanctuary county. So I was asked to give a speech on the Second Amendment to the group, and I'm not worried that I did it at all. I'm proud that I did it because I think that spirit of the American Revolution of saying, look, at some point, you do not give up your rights, and you must be willing to even fight for them. I'm proud that that spirit still exists in the hearts of many Americans. And I think that the Second Amendment in this case worked exactly how it's supposed to. The purpose of the citizens being armed, as the founders outlined in document after document, is to deter tyranny from the government. And this worked perfectly. There was no violent conflict between the government and the people because the governor and his allies in the legislature realized they didn't have the power to enforce this unconstitutional law.
Okay. All right.
So that's the full context. Anyway,
okay.
If somebody doesn't want to vote for me because I am fully supportive of the Second Amendment, then I can't help you.
Okay. All right. So the last thing we always do, and if you've got another issue you want to bring up ahead of time, that's fine. If not, we'll have you address the citizens of Pocatello and give your campaign spiel and plug your website and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, I think I'll cover one more issue, and then I guess I'll do the plug, standard plug.
Okay.
So a lot of things have come up over the course of this election. Like you just brought up, my opponents have tried to paint me as some sort of extremist candidate or some fringe candidate. If that was the case, we wouldn't have made it to the runoff. We have a broad base of support within the city. And I think there's some things that need to be brought up. I don't know what the investigative journalism bandwidth is at the Idaho Dispatch, but one of the things that's come up during this election but has been ignored by a lot of the media is that the city right now is facing a $21 million lawsuit from the Rupp Family Trust, which is a major property holder in our Northgate development project. And the allegations that have come forth in their notice of tort claim are very serious. Violations of property rights, breach of contract, and have even made the allegation that the mayor and city officials could have been involved in racketeering. And these allegations are being made by a law firm that has successfully sued the city of Pocatello in the past. So I don't think that the allegations should be taken lightly, and they're things that our media needs to be looking into and asking hard questions of the city, because this lawsuit, if it goes through, could potentially cost every homeowner in Pocatello every household $900 if it's at the 21 million amount. So I think that not only taxes, regulation, all the other things we talked about, but we need to restore transparency and accountability to Pocatello government, and that's something I am committed to doing as mayor. I'm not going to hide mistakes the city has made. We need to go in there, and sunlight is the best disinfectant, and find out if anything has been done that's been illegal. Then I fully intend to hold any city employee who willfully participated in that accountable, and we need to do right by the people we deal with, keep our word, keep our contracts, and respect the property rights of the people of our community.
Okay, yeah, those are some pretty serious allegations.
Yes, and again, they're made by a law firm that has successfully sued the city of Pocatello in the past.
Okay.
So I don't think they should be taken lightly.
Okay. Well, we can certainly. I mean, I don't know anything about that, so I can certainly start asking some questions, and maybe you can.
Yep, and we can refer you directly to the notice of tort claim that was filed by the Rupp family, and a lot of stuff needs to be looked into there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So go ahead with your campaign pitch and website, and
all right. So right now we have a choice between the past and the future. We can either have ever-increasing government spending and ever-increasing government taxes, or we can have a change in leadership, new ideas, new leadership, so that we can actually have a free and prosperous future in Pocatello. So thank you to all of you who have already provided wonderful support to our campaign, and to those of you who are undecided, I hope this interview has helped see that there is a clear alternative, a better alternative for our city. So vote Worley, November 30th. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.